Well, Mike Brennan, we're waiting for Matt to join us. I assume he's coming in at some point, and when he does, we'll let him in. But right now, we've just let in Terry, man of many hats, Bean, and he's going to be talking about his latest gig. I've known Terry for a long time, and he's done lots of different things, and now he's selling insurance, and he's selling cannabis. He's selling cannabis insurance, but we're not going to talk about it on this show today. We're going to talk about his cyber insurance. We'll get him on the cannabis show to talk cannabis insurance later. So, what's up with that, Terry? What do you got going on there?
It's funny. I was thinking about that this morning, knowing I was going to be on this show. We should actually maybe put a clip show together of all the different things I've been on here talking about over the years. That would be, might be an entire episode at this point. God only knows.
Well, according to the one David Phillips, who's engineering this show, we've done, 230 shows now, Dave?
Yeah, just about. I think this might be 230.
No kidding. I mean,
and here comes Matt.
Well, here comes Matt. We'll bring him in here. But in the meantime, so you're doing insurance, and everybody watching the show obviously would be interested in some kind of cyber insurance because we're all cyber folks here. So what do you got?
That's what it felt fitting, right? For the audience, for the people. Cyber insurance hasn't been around all that long. And so a lot of people get their insurance policy, they set it and forget it, and they kind of leave it. But if you haven't had your stuff looked at in the last 4 or 5 years, you may not even have cyber insurance. And your general liability policies that most business owners have don't really get into the cyber coverage at all. It's like the whole new frontier, a whole new world. So you may think you've got some coverage, but your audience knows, if you had a DDoS attack and your system goes down, your server goes down, even where your stuff is hosted, that goes down, you're SOL, right? That's a technical acronym, isn't it? We can use
that. Yeah, that's a tech term. That's okay to use it on this show. So.
Yeah. So this is it's just a different line of coverage, a whole different set, depending on what kind of trouble people get in. Why don't you say hi to Matt and welcome him formally, and then I'll tell you a couple of things that this actually covers.
Yeah. Hi, Matt. Welcome formally. So
we had a little computer trouble this afternoon. It was one of those 20-minute reboots. So
Oh yeah, I love those.
Better late than never, though. So
nothing like having tech troubles on a tech show, man. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so meta.
Yeah. All right, so Matt is with us now, and he'll be asking those really difficult questions. I only ask easy questions. So go ahead, Terry, and answer that easy question. What do you offer there? How's it going to help guys like and women, people watch the shows, all these tech people we deal with?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is, data breach. We hear about that all the time, if you're storing any information whatsoever and your company gets compromised, whether it's internally or, again, if you're hosting somewhere else, that's a problem. And you're going to run into a couple of issues. You're going to have some identity theft issues that you're going to have to cover for all your clients. You might actually get sued by them. This coverage might cover that for you. It'll also do any of the security updates and repair work. It'll do some of the forensics work that you're going to need to pay an expert to come in and figure out where the issue was to begin with. And then there's just so much. I really like the business interruption piece. So, for instance, if you're doing some e-commerce, you have an issue, your business is shut down for whatever reason, you're not connected, or maybe you're in trouble because of that cyber attack originally. Any loss of business, if you're an e-commerce company and you're doing $15,000 to $100,000 a day, you're off for a couple of days, that income goes away quickly. And this actually covers that. So you can kind of get reimbursed for some of that loss too. So it's just really the conversation is about, do you have it? And if you do have it, do you have the right amount? So for those that do, great, keep up the excellent work. But for those that don't, this is a topic that's real and it's real necessary. So just like, hey, figured I'd come on and have that conversation with you fine fellas.
So who's the underwriter for this kind of insurance? What kind of companies are offering it?
We've got a ton of different carriers, Matt, and thanks for asking. So, Some of the ones that we go to a lot are here in Michigan are Citizens, which is a Hanover company outside of this area, but Citizens is a well-known entity here in the state of Michigan. We do some work with our friends over at Liberty Mutual, does a little bit of work in this. And then we've got some E&S companies as well that are excess and surplus lines, RT Specialties, Hiscox, another big one that does a lot of work in the cyberspace. So there's a bunch of different carriers, and it's interesting. And for those that don't know, I didn't know anything about insurance 6 months ago, right? I wasn't in this space. I was coaching these guys that were a client of mine for a year and a half, and they said, you know what? Why don't you come here and run sales? So I said, how much money am I going to make doing public speaking at events over the next year versus how much money can I make in insurance? And I was like, hey, you know what? Insurance sounds like a lot of fun all of a sudden. And it's been a good run, man. So there's a bunch. We've got 30 different carriers that we work with. The majority of them have appetites for different parts of that business in the cyberspace, as well as, general liability, business owners policies, and all that fun commercial property, commercial auto stuff.
For a online publisher like myself, we also need libel and copyright infringement insurance. I did get hit with that one time. I used a picture. I don't even know how they found it. I used a picture like 3 or 4 years ago. Just picked up a picture of a lighthouse in Holland that I used on some story I was doing about Holland. And then I got these nasty lawyers contacted me. It cost me a lot of money to settle with them, even though I brought in my own lawyer. I mean, they originally wanted like $10,000. Obviously, that was not what they got, but it still cost me about 2 G's for using a lousy picture. And when I went to State Farm, they go, nope, sorry, we don't cover that. You're on, and I had the business liability insurance, all that other stuff that I buy, and I was SOL using that technical term. So
very technical.
Yes. So is that something you guys also offer, or are you looking into that?
Yeah, so that falls under the category of intellectual property, right? So it's the slander and libel, the same thing that you would have as a publisher, but it's also if you misappropriate, let's call it that, for lack of a better term, somebody else's content and you use it, whether it's in a blog post or a social media post. It's funny because I have a tendency to think, well, hell, if it's on Google, it's fair game. Yeah, that is not how that works in any way, shape, or form, right? It's got to be, what's it called? Creative Commons? Is that where the free stuff or the
that's the Wikipedia. That's basically the Wikipedia of images. Is Wikimedia Commons. That stuff is usually free to use as long as you attribute the creator. That's all I want is their name on it. But that's a big bugaboo for us at Lawrence Tech too, because we've got a lot of social media accounts with a lot of people running around out there, and everybody always wants art with their posts, right? And they just grab stuff and use it, and some of it's subject to copyright. Now,
I'd like all of it is technically, right? Unless it's designated that it is not, it is. It's like the opposite, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's an expensive lesson, Mike Brennan, that you were able to share and further my point. Thank you, sir.
Yes, and it has, shall we say, enhanced the way I use art now. I'm very, very careful about that. I've gone away from picking up pictures to like just picking up the logos of the companies or stuff that's on the company website, because I figure they're sharing it at that point anyway, right? But it really, I mean, you lose 2 G's, you have to pay these damn lawyers, right? It focused my attention.
It does, and it changes the way you do things because it's and I've used Creative Commons because I do a lot of presenting and I want to use the right picture. And it's funny because the right picture always seems to exist in the Google search,
right?
But you go into that Creative Commons world, bless you, and you got to become a lot more creative in which one of those commons you're going to use.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I there's a lot of things that are like that people just slap stuff up on a web page and they don't even think about it. So tell me a little bit about sort of why isn't this covered under general business liability insurance? Is there some language in most policies that specifically excludes online activities or cyber insurance, that kind of thing, or why don't we all have this already?
That's a great question, and I think if I were going to give the honest non-insurance guy answer, it's because it's another line of business where they can make extra dollars, right? So let's think of it from that perspective. But there's also the idea that commercial insurance has been around since Ben Franklin, right? He was one of the first guys to bring insurance into the country, and commercially it came out shortly after he started doing the life and home. And so when you look at what insurance has generally been about, it's been about dwellings or actual physical property. So I think the knowledge inside of the computer, right, the bits, the bytes that are flying back and forth, I don't think they even thought that they needed to cover that 10, 15 years ago. And so instead of just figuring out how to roll it in and change the the current general liability policies that most places have, they were like, you know what, we'll just make this its own separate entity. And if you guys know better than most just how diverse the world of technology is, there's so many different touch points, so many different customization points that, Mike alluded to cannabis earlier, similar to that world, there's 87 different ways to go. So it was just easier to build an entire new model around it than to try and adjust or edit the current stuff.
Interesting. Well, we got about a minute left, so this is the shameless plug point. So tell people how they can come to Honest Terry Bean, so that they can get that great cyber insurance and liability insurance and all the rest. Tell them how they can do that, Terry.
Absolutely. So PKIG, Phil Klein Insurance Group, PKIG.com. And if you're looking to reach me directly, Terry Bean at PKIG.com is the best way to find me.
Okay.
Traditional four-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.